is the Mufti Sheikh from Pakistan, Abu Muhammad Taqi Usmani, who is one of the most influential people in terms of Islamic finance in the world and fiqh, Islamic law. So if you follow Al-Handri rating, the rating of top 500 Muslims in the world, you will see that our guest is holds the sixth position at the moment, and above are people only like His Majesty Король Abdullah of Saudi Arabia, Ayatollah Khamenei, and Erdogan, and two more rulers of the countries. Yes, so, and Mufti Muhammad Taqi Usmani is the fourth of them. So, as a judge, Usmani was the judge in the Supreme Court of Pakistan and really influenced on developing Islamic finance. And we have a special book dedicated to his job as a judge. It is not being translated into Russian, but have a look at this book. It's called The Historic Judgment on Interest in Supreme Court of Pakistan. So this is the founding text of judgment decisions on riba, wrote by Judge Usmani when he was working for the Supreme Court of Pakistan. And here, of course, you can see his logic as a judge, but he's also an economist and financist. But at the same time, he acted as a judge and reviewed a number of cases in the Supreme Court of Pakistan. And we have here a list of his decisions. I also promised to you that I would show you a book by our guest in Russian. It's called Introduction into Islamic Finance. It was published 3 years ago in Moscow by Islamic Book Editorial House. And not all scientists, not all people who are interested in Islamic finance have a brilliant command of English, so this is a real opportunity to learn about his views on Islamic finance translated into Russian. Also, I would like you to see another wonderful book in Russian. It's called Standards of Sharia. So this is how it looks like. So Sheikh Usmani was one of the co-authors, so he's head of the board on compliance in the International Organization on Accounting and Audit for Financial Organizations, which is called IUFI. And of course, it also covers IUFI standards. And due to influence of Sheikh Usmani, they are really popular. But there are two types of standards: Sharia standards and accounting and audit standards. And I am truly happy to tell you that some weeks ago, the Higher School of Economics won a tender from this organization and was licensed to teach these standards. For SIBA, Islamic Standard, it stands for Certified Islamic Professional Accountants. So a good set of standards on Islamic accounting. And now we would like to invite our colleagues to translate these standards into Russian so that next year we would be able to open a training center on Islamic standards at the base of the Higher School of Economics, and they will be the basis for exams, and we plan to cover all post-Soviet countries with these standards. Also, I would like you to have a look at our interpretation, at our view on Islamic standard, on how they can be used here in Russia. So yesterday, in the attendance of Sheikh at our plenary session, we presented your report on how Russia influence on the world food markets, and I think it is available, it is publicly available online, and the Higher School of Economics would always make them public. And in the report there is a description of Sheikh's views and how Islamic finance can be used, and how traditional contracts in Islamic finance may be interpreted to develop agricultural export to Islamic countries. I have a very long list of titles of our Sheikh Usmani and his books, and if we would go through that entire list, I will waste Sheikh Usmani's time, and I could talk till the morning. But I would like to tell you about 3 or 4 main positions. So our guest is vice rector in Dars-i-Nizami in Darul Uloom, the city of Karachi, Pakistan. He is also head of the World Organization on Accounting and Audit in the Kingdom of Bahrain, and also he is head of the Council on Islamic Compliance in a number of large organizations in the Islamic world. So he was, well, maybe the main of them is Islamic Band of Abu Dhabi, or Adib in Western terminology. And of course he is author of many publications. He wrote over 60 books, and some of them were written in Arabic, in Urdu, in English from 1970s, before many of us were born, including myself. Shaikh Usmani was already a renowned researcher of Islamic finance and fiqh. Also, I would like use that opportunity to give the floor to another member of our presidium. I am really happy to introduce to you Lady Madina Kalimulina, who is head of Russian Association of Experts on Islamic Finance, and also a senior research officer in our Institute of Law and Development in the Higher School of Economics, Skopje. Maybe Lady Madina would also like to say a couple of words, and after that we will give the floor to our distinguished guest. And so the total duration of our meeting is 1 hour and 20 minutes, and we will divide it into 2 parts. So 40 minutes when we will have the lecture of our guest, and then he will have the chance to answer questions from the audience. Assalamu alaikum, welcome everyone. On behalf of the Russian Association of Experts on Islamic Finance, we are happy to introduce Sheikh Mufti Muhammad Taqi Usmani here in Moscow, and the project of the Higher School of Economics. Rest the hope that this is not the first visit of our distinguished guest, but one of the first visits focused on implementation of the project, as Kirill said, on how Islamic financial tools could be used to promote Russian food export, including halal food export, which has high potential. And we look forward to your advice, your knowledge of people, the scale of Sheikh Mufti Muhammad Taqi Usmani to resolve questions we face in this project and maybe subsequent projects. And I feel sorry for wasting a little bit of your time. And now I would like to hand it over to you. Yeah, a couple of minor remarks. Madina is very modest, and he did really huge job on our tender with the Ministry of Agriculture, which the Higher School of Economic won. And it had to do with the development of the federal concept of developing Russian exports of halal food. And of course it was a team work with a number of scientists from the Higher School of Economics, and the contribution of Medina into the project can hardly be overestimated. We developed the text of the concept, and we hope it also contributes to development of Russian halal food export to Islamic countries. And the last remark to comment, according to law, if we have audio or video footage, I need to announce about that. So there is a video signal being recorded for Russia Today, and also there is like an audio recording for our audience. So the floor, I would like to give the floor to our distinguished guests.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد خاتم النبيين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وعلى كل من تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد, my dear Mr. Professor Krill, Ms. Medina, and the respected participants on this occasion, I greet you with the Islamic greetings. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It means that peace be upon you and Allah's mercy and Allah's blessings. These are the words we speak when we meet a person to greet him. I am, first of all, after paying gratitude to my Creator, I am extremely grateful to the Higher School of Economics that has given me an opportunity to be with you in this evening and to share some of mutual understandings, some mutual interest about Islamic finance. I am extremely grateful and thankful to our brother Professor Krill and Ms. Medina and all those who participated in organizing this lecture. And I, as a humble student of Islamic Sharia, would like to present before you some basic points about Islamic finance. First of all, Islam perhaps is the most misconstrued and misrepresented religion in the globe. There are many misconceptions about Islam that spread all over the globe since last 10 or 15 years. Sometimes Islam is taken to be as a religion of extremism or religion of fundamentalism, etc. As you noticed that our first sentence that we pronounce when meeting each other is peace be upon you and Allah's mercy and Allah's blessing. So therefore, this is in fact quite contrary to the concept of the developed some years ago about Islam. The second misconception is that Islam is taken to be only a religion. Religion in the sense that it has some dogmas and some rituals that are followed by Muslims. In fact, this is not true. Islam is a way of life that has been given by our Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam through the revelation from Allah, the creator of this universe, by Holy Quran and the practices and sayings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it is not restricted to perform some rituals, some ways of worship in the mosques, or fasting during a particular month of Ramadan, or performing Hajj, a pilgrimage to Mecca and Medina. Although these are the basic pillars of Islamic religion, but it is not restricted to these ways of worship. It is a way of life which governs each and every aspect of our daily life. There are instructions in Islam about one's character, one's morals, one's social issues, one's economic issues. So the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave us this kind of a way of life that guides us in each and every sphere of our life, including finance. So when we speak about Islamic finance, it means that our financial system must be in consonance with the basic principles given by our Creator through our Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And these principles are not too narrow to keep pace with the changing situations in our daily life, and not too broad to sacrifice the basic values and basic principles given to us by our Creator and through his Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there are some broad values, broad principles that govern each sphere of our life, but on the same pattern, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a very wide area in which we can use our reason and also our experience to run a good life in all of our spheres of in this universe. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us so elasticity in our work that we can develop anything in overchanging states of life in every century, in every time. So Islamic finance is developed on this concept that we have certain values, certain basic principles, we have to abide by them, and we can change some our needs according to our needs. We can change the ideas and the framework of our economy or our financial system. So this is something that brings an economic system or financial system that may be the solution of many of our economic and financial problems. To begin with, I'll request my audience that, alhamdulillah, in this part of the world, in Russia, you have tasted and experienced different systems of economic life. You have experienced at the beginning in Russia market economy, and then you had experienced planned economy, and again you are now in a mixed economy, which has sometimes it may be called a market economy, and this with certain restrictions or certain conditions. So I present before you another system, that is Islamic financial system, that is in between the two extremes of planned economy and market economy. Though this is based on some basic concepts that have been neglected in our days, in our present system, and it may be that these basic principles will be some better solutions for the problems of our economy. First of all, when we speak of Islamic finance, we must take into account the nature of money, because all the financial systems revolves on money. So first of all, we should understand what money is and how to deal with this money. It is very ironical that each American dollar, US dollar, has a sentence on it: we trust in God. Isn't it? Every dollar note has this declaration: we trust in God. But when it comes to earn this money, when it comes to spend this money, God is totally out of the picture. It is a sentence, just a sentence written on every dollar. But first of all, we should understand what money is. Now it has become an economic assumption that money is a medium of exchange. This concept of money to being a medium of exchange was, according to my limited knowledge, was first presented by Imam Ghazali. Ghazali, some 600 years ago, he discussed the nature of money thoroughly, and after a detailed discussion that may be found in my books, he came to the conclusion that money is only a medium of exchange. Only a medium of exchange, or may be called as reserve, reserve of value. But this concept, according to my knowledge, firstly was presented by Imam Ghazali, who was a big philosopher of Islamic history. Then this concept was developed and admitted by a large number of economists. And they said that this is a medium of exchange. But they could not go into the details and to the logic conclusions of this concept of being money a medium of exchange. Because after admitting that it is a medium of exchange, they made it as an object of trade itself. If you consider the nature of money, it is not a commodity. It is not a form of any goods. It is just medium of exchange because it has no intrinsic value, intrinsic utility. If you have a heap of dollars, heap of rubles with you, you can never eat them, nor to have any utility or get any benefit out of that money. So therefore, this is only a medium of exchange. But it was the logical conclusion after admitting this principle that it should not be taken as a matter of trade, as a subject of trade. It could not be traded in the sense that I give this money vis-a-vis the other money. But unfortunately, that was the reason that right from the Moses, Musa alayhi salam, if you go through the Bible, if you go through the scriptures of Israeli prophets, in every scripture you will find that usury is prohibited. Usury means that any addition over and above the loan is prohibited in Bible and also in the Holy Quran. And this was admitted by the whole universe that this is some kind of a prohibited transaction. Riba or interest is a prohibited transaction. Perhaps you have gone through the very famous drama of Shakespeare, in which he quotes Shylock.
Merchant of Venus.
Merchant of Venus, yeah. Shylock. So, in those days also, it was admitted that usury is prohibited, not only prohibited by religion, but also an immoral act. Immoral act. But when after the Industrial Revolution in Europe, they started trading in money. So basic hurdle was that the religions, prohibited usury. Then an idea was created that, every type of interest or usury is not prohibited. It is only prohibited when a loan is given to a poor man for his consumption. But if you have given loan to an industrialist or a businessman, out of which he earns a lot of money, then if we charge interest, this is not a prohibited act, not an immoral act. This theory was developed by Calvin. Firstly, by Calvin, the companion of Luther, Martin Luther. So this hurdle was crossed by interpreting the usury in a different manner. And after this hurdle is crossed, then a large number of loan instruments were created, and paper money came out. Paper money, first of all, instead of real silver and gold, the paper money has been taken as money, and then a large number of transactions of money towards money have been created. And on that basis, banks were established. And in banks, after dealing with this paper money or paper currency, they created or invented another species of money, another imaginal species that created money created by the banks. Money created by the banks. It is a well-known principle of economy that banks create money, which means that in fact there was no money at all, but the banks created money. And then came the financial papers, financial bonds, and then came the what do we call it? Derivatives. Financial papers, derivatives. And derivatives, what are being traded in the whole world. And I may quote an economist who says that these derivatives, which have no intrinsic commodity behind them, these are only options, futures, swaps, all these things. There are the total worth of the derivatives in the whole world was 741.1 trillion. 741.1 trillion in 2008 when I wrote this article, while the total GDP of the entire world was only 60.6 trillion. Just imagine, it means that the worth of derivatives is 12 times more than the gross product of all the countries of the globe gathered together. So, how big is this number of 741.1 trillion when in 1996 the worth of derivatives was only 64 million? Richard Thompson had remarked, how do you imagine a number that big? You could say that if you laid all those dollar bills end to end, they would stretch from here to the sun in 66 times, or to the moon 25,000 times. The total worth of the derivatives, which means that there is no real economy behind them. These are only imaginal creature, and this imaginal creature exceeded all bounds. And if you calculate, you will find that the paper currency, which is also debt-ridden, that paper currency, in compared to the total money supply, paper currency is not more than 3%. 3% only. This is the paper currency, debt-ridden currency. And all the 97% is just numbers, digits, fed in the computers. They have no nexus with the real economy. So this is the basic reason, the basic cause for this bubble economy. Rather, I call it balloon economy. Bubble is a small one, is a small thing, but now it has become a balloon, and this balloon can be burst anytime, and it really burst in 2008, and the whole economy was was destroyed because of these artificial instruments that has been created out of riba, out of interest. So, therefore, the basic reason, in my opinion, for this situation is because of riba, interest-based transactions, which have been prohibited by the Holy Quran and Sunnah of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, a pertinent question may be raised here that if we disallow interest, now the economic life depends on banks and financial institutions. So, if you abolish riba, abolished interest from the banking system, why the people will deposit their money in the banks? Then deposits will be just donations without any return. So, I would say that according to Islamic principles, there is a difference between a loan and a commercial transaction. Loan is only to help someone without charging anything over and above. If you give a loan to a person, you must decide whether you are helping him, assisting him, or you want to earn profit through that. If you are helping, then you must abide by the principle that you cannot charge anything over and above the principal amount. But if you want to be his partner or to earn profit through this, then it will be equitable that you share his profit or his loss. For example, if I have advanced 1 million to someone, so instead of charging interest, this 1 million was invested in some commercial transaction, and there came out profit, then you may have a share in the profit. But at the same time, if the commercial transaction faces a loss, you should also be facing a loss to the proportion of your investment. So on that basis, the deposits may be attracted if the banking system is based on equity, not on the basis of interest. So equity, now the position is that if you analyze, and I have analyzed, that the bank's deposits is in fact the wealth of the people. The wealth of the people. And when this bulk of money is deposited in the bank, there is only 0.1% of the people who benefit from that. If you analyze how many people are getting benefit of this wealth, you will find that totally it is 0.1% of the total depositors that benefit from that money. This huge money goes to industrialists, to businessmen, and they earn a lot of profit out of that. But they do not give the equitable share to the deposit holder. Deposit holder earns only a very meager amount of interest. That is, for example, sometimes 2%, 3%, up to 7%. But the whole profit goes to the pocket of the person who has benefited from this bulk of wealth. So, this is not a just or equitable, that out of the wealth of the total population, only a small amount, a small percentage of persons, like 0.1%, benefit from the wealth of the whole society, and they earn profits, lot of profits, but they give to the depositors an interest which is very low, and sometimes this inflation does not match with the inflation rate, which means that sometimes the actual return to the depositor is negative rather than being positive. So therefore, this is a system totally against justice, economic justice, against a just and equitable distribution of wealth. The Holy Quran says a basic principle of economy is that that the wealth should not rotate between the rich people only. It should be distributed in just manner, in an equitable manner. And that was, in fact, the basic concept of planned economy also. In planned economy, in socialism and communism, the basic concept was that the wealth should be distributed among the people with according to the justice and equity. But unfortunately, there were some other hurdles that could not this system could not bring fruits. But in the Islamic system, market economy, in the sense that market economy is no doubt accepted by the Holy Quran. نحن قسمنا بينهم معيشتهم في الحياة الدنيا. Quran says that we have divided the economic positions in this world among different kind of people. But at the same time, the demand and supply forces, the forces of demand and supply, should be given opportunity to work in a manner that it could not bring huge gap between haves and have-nots, between poor and rich. So for that purpose, in a capitalist economy or in a market economy, sometimes, for example, usury is given permission. So therefore, this usury, in fact, or this interest, in fact, creates monopolies. And whenever there are monopolies, the forces of demand and supply cannot work smoothly. These monopolies hinder the results, the good results of the demand and supply forces. They hinder its smooth running, and therefore the wealth is distributed unequitably. Now, you imagine if the banks are working on the basis of equity, not on the basis of interest, then a large number of profits will go to the deposit holders, not to the rich only, but also the small depositors. They will enjoy some parts of the profit that is enjoyed by the industrialist and capitalist people. So, therefore, the Islamic finance means that our economy, our financial system should be based on equity rather than debts. So that is not a good thing. The Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it advised the people not to be involved in taking loans or taking debts, etc. So instead of that, he encouraged the real commercial activities on the basis of equity. Now there comes a question that in some cases we can apply equal participation in profit and loss, that is musharaka or partnership. But there are many other fields in which this participation in profit and loss cannot work. For example, consumption loans or personal loans. In these loans, for example, one takes a loan to acquire a house to live, or acquires a loan to buy a car. So these are consumption loans in which no participation or no partnership can be the solution. In that situation also, Islam has given certain modes of financing. For example, the basic concept in Islamic finance is that money cannot be traded with money. Only in cross-border transactions. So, money cannot be traded in, but money can be used to purchase or sell some commodities. So, instead of giving a loan, if you sell something to a person, adding a profit to it, there is no bar, there is no prohibition. And therefore, we have in Islamic finance some instruments other than musharaka, that is participation in profit and loss. That is murabaha, for example. Murabaha means that the bank, for example, an Islamic bank, instead of giving a loan in the form of money, the bank itself purchases some commodity and then sells it to the client after having a markup, after having an amount of profit. This is called murabaha. So, the basic difference between the two is that the interest transaction is money versus money. Money versus money. And here, in Islamic transactions, it is money against commodities. And it is the principle that has been enshrined by the Holy Quran by saying, Ahallallahu al-baya wa harram al-riba. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed sale, but He has prohibited riba, and interest. So if you do a sale, and enter into a sale transaction, you are allowed to earn a profit. If the market is competitive, then you can charge a reasonable profit out of that sale. But if you trade money versus money, this is prohibited, because all these results that I have explained earlier have been created by the transactions of money versus money. So therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Holy Quran has clearly defined that bay, yani sale, is halal, is permissible. But riba, that is interest, is prohibited. So this is another form of our mode of financing that is being used by the Islamic banks. Sometimes it is argued that the profit earned by Islamic banks through this sale transaction is almost the same as charged by the interest-based transactions in conventional banks. But, although it is a reality, but the basic underlying principle is different. Underlying principle is that you cannot earn money without involving yourself in the real economy. Sale is a real transaction, is a real economy. And conversely, the interest is a transaction, money versus money, that is not allowed. And that is the basic cause, that I have been asked many times from some economists, some financial experts, some politicians, even from some presidents of some country. They invited me and asked me, what is the reason that the Islamic banks did not suffer such a loss in 2008 crisis as suffered by the traditional or conventional banks? So the basic reason was that Islamic banks always transact in commodities, in real economy, not money versus money, and they cannot be involved in financial papers like those of. They may have some sukuk, but there is another concept. But financial papers of options or futures or swaps, they cannot enter into it. Therefore, their basic the underlying asset is always some goods or commodities, and the banks, interest-based banks, were involved in transactions of money, with presumed artificial money that has had no backing at all. So this was the basic reason that Islamic banks suffered less during the financial crisis of 2008. So therefore, our Islamic finance is something to be learned and to be studied, to be researched, and to be experienced. And this is not, sometimes it comes to one's mind that Islamic finance is, relevant for Muslims only, while the truth is otherwise. Islamic finance is not restricted to Muslims. It addresses the needs of the humanity at large. No? Okay. So it needs the humanity at large. So therefore, implying or applying Islamic finance should not be taken as something religious only. It is for the betterment of humankind. And therefore, we are propagating, educating people to consider, to study this kind of finance. And inshallah, I hope that gradually it will be in the betterment of humanity that we experience Islamic finance. And I am again very much grateful to the Higher School of Economics that has given me this opportunity to talk or to say a few words about Islamic finance, and I hope that an outline of the basic principles has been given by me in this short lecture. But if you study deeply, you will find that inshallah it will be beneficial for the whole world. And alhamdulillah, now in Russia, and particularly this School of Economics, Higher School of Economics, trying to study this and to teach this, to educate people about this, and we will be very happy to offer any support, any academic support, any research support to this project undertaken by this university. And again, I congratulate them, I thank them, I am grateful to them, and we will be inshallah, will remain in contact for betterment or for the better relations with regard to Islamic finance. And thank you very much.
Я хочу сказать, что для меня это очень важно, что именно
would like to tell you that I would like to tell you that the statement that Islamic finance is not just for Muslims is very important for me. Of course, there is a religious component, but we cannot just talk about religious here in a secular university. We should not argue about which religion is better. It cannot be subject of discussion in a secular educational institution. But from the functional, instrumental use of the principles, and so it's like Arabic numbers and Roman numbers, but Arabic numbers won because they were more convenient to use technologically, and we use Arabic numbers not being supporters of some movements in radical Islam, and this can also be said regarding contracts. So if the financial constructions of the Islamic world, if they are more efficient, if they are more honest than some concepts we have in Anglo-Saxon world, then I believe we need to use them, because of course financial constructions in Anglo-American world, in UK contract law, if we would talk about the legal component, so they didn't lead to anything good to our world. So if we would start use Islamic law and Islamic finance just as tools, as a practical tool, it can be helpful because it will make our financial system more healthy. And also regarding money and cash flows. Well, you know, sometimes on some events, moderators abuse their rights and ask the guests many questions, and but this is not what we're going to do here in the High School of Economics. Your questions, please. Okay, we have a lot of questions, so to give more people chances to speak, well, please introduce yourself and ask just one question. I'm sorry, the question is out of the microphone. Distinguished Sheikh, I'm happy to welcome you here in Moscow. I'm Beslan. I actually work in a bank, and that's why I'm here as a person, as a private person. But you said that for Muslims, it's not desirable to give loans, to give money in debt, and also to take it. But let's take a look at a loan, at a credit, which is linked to refinance rate. Well, you know that if you borrow $1 million today, in 1 year's time, it will not be the same $1 million. So if you add only the inflation rate, so what would be the attitude to that type of loan in Islamic theology's world? And how do you, what's your attitude to the inflation rate? Thank you.
Very pertinent question. In fact, as I explained earlier, when you advance money to a person, then you must decide whether you are helping him, assisting him only, or you are undertaking a commercial transaction. If you are helping him, it will be just like putting one's money in a treasury of his own treasury, household treasury. So if you put that money in your treasury and inflation goes high, who will suffer? You will suffer. because you have put your own money in your treasury. So, if in a loan transaction, inflation has nothing to do with it. But if you enter into a real transaction, a commercial transaction, then you can match the inflation rate with the profit rate. Your profit rate may be taking into account the inflation rate. So this is the solution. That when you, for example, if you undertake murabaha or ijara, that is leasing, then you can take into account that maybe the inflation rate may be higher than today. So you build that in your price or in your rent amount. But in loan, in a simple loan is as you have deposited money in your own pocket or in your own treasury, and inflation rate cannot be taken into account. Who will suffer the loss? Who will give you the amount of the matching inflation rate when you have deposited your money in your own treasury?
Rashid Ishakov, producer.
I am Rashid Ishakov, a producer. Okay, we know that in mortgage loans, interest is forbidden in Islamic world. But recently, Islamic Council in Europe allowed Muslim people to take mortgage. In Europe, Muslims are a minority, and also in Russia, many Muslim nations are minorities. So, can this practice be also applicable to Russia? Thank you.
This has been allowed by European Council European Council, but this was not allowed by them because they allow riba or allow an interest. They take it as an emergency, as a necessity, because a person cannot live without a house, and he cannot purchase a house without indulging in mortgage. Therefore, they have allowed. Although I differ from them, I personally differ from them, but the basic reason for their fatwa, their ruling, is just necessity. Yes, please.
Уважаемый шейх, такой не...
Dear Sheikh, a little question. So I'm Rustam Nurgaliyev, an advisor of Ulems of Tatarstan, deputy. So what's your attitude to the modern tool which is called cryptocurrency, bitcoins? So they are not supported either by gold or by silver and are not covered by warranty of any bank of the world.
Cannot give a verdict on that, because still this is a mysterious creature. I very difficult to even understand it. So I am not clear so far about that. I am seeing that this is being used for speculation only, and speculative transactions are not preferable in an Islamic finance. So, but I cannot give a fatwa on that at the moment, because after a long time of study, still I am at loss because it is so complicated instrument that is very difficult to understand. And this is what I see, that even in financial transactions, a science was developed of financial engineering, financial engineering. And the people like George Soros, George Soros, the famous investor, he says, I am investing in some instruments, I do not understand what they are. So this is also this type of the thing that I cannot comment with certitude.
University, and I'm a head of the School of Finance in this university, and we're teaching all finance courses within the university in different faculties. My name is Irina Ivashkovskaya, and I, if possible, have two pure financial questions. I totally agree that Islamic finance is really a very interesting event. And of course, it would be really good if it can spread over non-Muslim nations and non-Muslim businesses. But what is the role of Islamic Board of Directors and Islamic risk management in whole Islamic finance? Because if you do not permit pure loans, if you do not permit interest expense, if you have very specific procedures for corporate bonds issues, it is backed, as I think, on the specific role of corporate boards or Islamic boards in addition, supervisory boards. So can you give an example when supervisory Islamic board should intervene, should enter if he thinks or they think something is wrong with the transaction, so they do not follow Islamic principles? This is the first question. And the second, according to corporate finance knowledge all over the world, the cost of debt for any company is really lower, is smaller than the cost of equity. When Islamic finance prohibits debt and loans, it should mean that the required rate of return for the risk of all Islamic businesses would be higher than for non-Islamic businesses which use debt. What do you think about this? Thank you.
Можно немножко добавлю ко второму вопросу.
Yes, I would like to comment a little bit on this second question, because we had that discussion yesterday with the Sheikh, and we talked about a wider concept of risks in business. And Sheikh Usmani told us that the Western credit agencies have very vague idea of the business idea on what it should be like, and that when they evaluate risks, so they are quite often wrong. And we have a major question on what the risks should be in business. In Islamic world, what risks are normal and what are not normal, and how you should evaluate risks in business?
Thank you very much for this question. In fact, if you ask about the Islamic board, Islamic Sharia board, that overlook the transactions, in all Islamic banks there is a board that decides whether these transactions have been carried out according to the Islamic principles or not. If they are not carried out according to the Islamic principles and there was no compliance of Sharia, then in that case the board decides that this transaction, the profit earned through this transaction will be given in charity. It will not form part of the income. This is about your first question. Then second question, as rightly pointed out by my brother, we should differentiate between loan and debt. Loan, in a transaction of loan, you cannot charge anything over and above the principal. But debt can be created through a sale. If I, sell something on deferred payment basis, then this is also a debt, not a loan. And this kind of debt is allowed, as I explained in Murabaha, in Ijara, in Salam and Istisna, different mode of financing, in which you create a debt, not a loan. So if the commercial activities in need of debt, not of loan, then they must be carried out according to murabaha, ijara, and different modes of financing.
Так, мы взяли много вопросов с этой стороны. Давайте, чтобы для равенства, вот вам дадим с этой стороны слово. Ага.
Okay, feel free to ask, please. Sorry, the comment is out of the microphone. Okay. Could you please ask the speaker to repeat his question in the microphone?
This is not, his voice doesn't go to the...
Okay, I will repeat my question. Okay, I repeat my question with your permission. Is my understanding correct from cases and examples you give us that the system of Islamic finance would provoke higher transaction-related risks, and in the long-term run, it can lead to a situation when the economic development speed could fall in Islamic countries. But on the other hand, if you are saying Islamic finance are more just and they contribute to equity, then why in Islamic countries we see also a big social gap? Sometimes it's higher than in Europe. Thank you.
Very good question. In fact, I have discussed the concept of Islamic finance. Unfortunately, in most Islamic countries, the Islamic finance has not been applied so far. Even in some countries like Saudi Arabia, like Pakistan, the proportion of Islamic financial transactions is not more than 15% in Pakistan. In Saudi Arabia, it is said that it is over 80%, but I am reluctant to accept this. And in some Islamic countries, for example, in Egypt or some other countries, the proportion of Islamic finance is very negligible. The basic cause is that the Western financial system is dominant over the world, and the persons who know about this finance, they have not been educated in their schools, in their colleges, in their universities. So they are habitual to the same finance that they study in their universities. So the concept of Islamic finance has come, some 30 years ago, because some people felt that we should avail the opportunity of Islamic finance. So many people, even in Islamic world, many governments, many states are reluctant to, because they are not fully aware of the system.
Another question from this side, please.
My name is Rafael. I am from Kyrgyz Republic, and I have question about credit. And I listened before Muslim people can take from non-Muslim credits with percent, and it's true or false. And its question was, I worked in Dubai, and I saw in Dubai Islamic Bank, in Sharjah Islamic Bank, and the banks give credits for percent and for another people, for migrants. And it's true or false in Islamic finance system. Thank you.
In fact,
Итак, вы знаете, да, запрет процентов, запрет рибы. Это общий запрет. И здесь нет разницы, относится ли это к мусульманам или к немусульманам.
I run an investment company here in Moscow, investment fund. So my question is, am I right that according to Islamic finances principles, the only type of allowed strategies are buying stocks and selling stocks with no leverage, with no short positions, with no options, futures or something?
Вы знаете, да, я не говорю о торговле акциями. Она разрешена при соблюдении ряда условий. И мы разработали наш исламский индекс в США. И у нас есть специальный индекс ценных бумаг. То есть, значит, некоторые акции некоторых компаний на некоторых условиях можно приобретать. Да, но вы правы, чтобы не было продажи через короткий срок, и не фьючерсы, а вот спотовые сделки могут быть разрешены. И у меня была дискуссия с экспертами на эту тему, с бизнесменами. И мои коллеги утвердили этот исламский индекс акций. Мы разработали ряд условий, и с этими условиями вы можете ознакомиться через интернет.
Ассаламу алейкум рахматуллахи баракату. У меня вопрос по развитию.
Аллах баракатов. Ассаламу алейкум.
В России, даже в Москве, имеются сложности.
Okay, could you please? I am from Moscow Islamic Institute Shaikul. In Russian Federation and even in Moscow, you have restrictions on finding projects favorable for Muslims. For instance, like a project for heating of our mosques. Yes, because at the moment mosques are charged very much for heating. There is a non-commercial project for non-commercial organizations. But how would you recommend us to find reasons and find information about such projects?
I can explain. The point is that there are some potential investment projects or social projects that need finance, and for example, for the development of society or particularly Muslim society. And the problem is where to seek for such kind of funds and investments.
You know, if the
Итак, если концепция исламских финансов
truly understood, there may be that you may develop your own financial institutions based on Islamic finance. So in that case, you can use the funds from those institutions. Or maybe that in a number of non-Muslim countries in the world, they have some windows or subsidiaries that are working on Islamic basis. So therefore, we hope that this concept is, if this concept is accepted in this country, and I hope that it should be, then inshallah you will have some institutions to fund your projects, inshallah.
Давайте я как модератор задам один вопрос, и потом возьмем еще два вопроса из...
Okay, I would like to ask one question as a moderator, and then we will take two more questions from the audience. So my question to our distinguished Sheikh as a moderator is, here in Russia, who work with civil law, there is an old discussion about who owns the money which is deposited in the bank. Is it the client or is it the bank? If the bank is, what's the reason for requirements of the investor, of the account holder to the bank? So the question to you about Islamic banks or another Islamic institution, who is the owner of the money invested there?
There is a big difference between conventional Islamic banks in this respect. You know, in conventional banks, the money is owned by the banks in the sense that they have taken something as a loan, or the people have deposited their money. They have taken it and they invest that money to others. So, but in Islamic financial system, the deposits on, I am speaking of investment accounts, not of current accounts. Current accounts are in both kind of banks are owned by the bank itself. And in the investment account, on basis of mudaraba normally, so they are owned by the depositors, and the bank acts as a mudarib, as a working partner for the investors. This is the basic difference between the two.
Microphone.
Alexei Kovalenko.
Banking and finance under the central bank. У меня короткий вопрос. Во-первых, спасибо большое, господин Шейх.
I have a brief question. Many thanks, dear Sheikh Usmani, for coming here and for your very exciting presentation. As you know, in recent 20 years in Russian Federation, we made serious attempts to introduce Islamic financial instruments. But at the moment, we don't have any Islamic bank or other organizations which would use them in practice. And one of the reasons is the lack of law. We don't have any law for that. In your opinion, there are alternatives to wait till such legislation is developed, which is done by Russian Ummah, Muslim community, and many specialists, or maybe we should begin with some pilot projects which started before. And maybe try to open a window, an Islamic window in one of the banks, or to begin Islamic windows in insurance business or in investment business. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this question. In fact, I would say that there is no need to wait for a new legislation. Although in many countries there has been legislation about Islamic finance, and the efforts should be made to make a legislation for that. But I don't think that it should be an obstacle in beginning Islamic finance in this country. I think that if you establish a bank, there are many obstacles, legal obstacles. Then, but if you, for example, start with an investment company rather than a bank, then it may serve the purpose of many people. Or if you establish a certain fund or a certain portfolio, so you can start with the Islamic finance through that. And the second, as for the Islamic window, it will need some amendment in the law, legislation. But even if you don't, the basic obstacle in the legal framework is that the existing legal system does not allow the banks to carry out a sale or to enter into a sale transaction. They cannot have an inventory. So in this obstacle has been crossed in some countries by the fact that they have demanded the central bank to treat murabaha transaction or ijara transaction not as a sale but as of financing. So for example, if you enter into a sale of a house and then purchase a house and then sell it, you have to be subject to double taxation. So in some countries, this has been abolished. In UK, for example, UK has abolished double taxation for Islamic financial transactions. So the efforts can be made through this. But still, if you don't, if you are not able to change the legislation, then it is not necessary that you work in the form of a bank only, where there are many other ways, investment company, fund, etc.
Thank you. What about Takaful? Just a couple words, please.
Yeah. Takaful, in fact, this can also be, I think it may be that it can work without changing the legislation. Without changing the legislation, maybe I'm not aware of the local law, but I think Takaful is easier than an Islamic bank.
Вопросы Мадины Калимуллина, и я обещал, что будет еще вопрос.
A question from Medina, and then one more question from the audience, as I promised. Yes, I would like to comment a little bit on the last question, and also for our guests' understanding for the Sheikh. In Russia, we have a situation when we have no financial license for a company to be able to enter in Islamic finance. Even with the investment company, so it is possible, but it's not licensed. So people like depositors, they do not have so many confidence and trust to the companies. Although we have such companies and they are developing little by little. This was the first obstacle. And the second obstacle, one second, that you have no trust without a license. And sorry, I forgot. There are some tax-related questions, and any company would need a banking partner, even if it is a leasing company, a finance, you still need a partner. You still need Islamic window. It was just my comment. And I also had a little question to Sheikh. Yeah, so, and it is problematic in many countries and in many areas of business about restriction on using cash money. Do you have any special approach in Islamic finance on the cash money? And also, on taking money away from the country, from the national economy. Do you have any vision on that? I would really love to hear your opinion.
This is not a Sharia question. This depends on the circumstances of each and every country. If the law does not permit you to bring your wealth outside the country, it may do so. And if there is Islamic finance has nothing to do with that. This is a total, local problem. So local issue. This goes to the legislature. The legislature may allow it, may not allow it. This is open to the legislature.
Okay, and now maybe now a couple of two more questions.
Come from New York, I'm involved in central banking. Do you support Dr. Mahathir bin Mohammed's gold standard currency without interest? And if so, would you agree that using a currency that is intrinsically worthless would be regarded as a fraud under Islamic law? And that the banking systems also, when they fractionalize their reserves and create additional credit, JP Morgan used to say, gold is money, everything else is credit. The credit would be abolished essentially by Islamic financing. So it would seem that you would only have gold left, and that if anybody wants to invest, you wouldn't need an Islamic bank, you would just invest your gold in the company, and you could abolish the entire banking system.
Perhaps I have explained a little earlier that it is only loan that cannot earn interest from Islamic financial system, but there should be a difference between loan and a debt transaction. Debt transaction is not restricted to a loan. Debt transaction or credit transaction may be of a sale. For example, if I sell some commodity on deferred payment basis, this creates credits. This is a debt over the client. So I am not saying that debt should be abolished totally. I am saying that in Islamic finance, preferable instrument is equity. But if there are needs for debts, then debt may be created through commodities, not through money. Money should not be traded with, money versus money is not a current.
You can have interest just as well on a commodity. I think they call it tarbit. You can have interest as much there as you can have on money, on gold.
Yes, but I have explained in my submissions that if a credit, earns a profit where the underlying asset is a commodity, this is something very different from earning a profit over money only. If your credit transactions are based on commodities, then there will not be such a big space with the real economy and the digital economy. So therefore, you can enter into that transaction based on commodities, not on money.
If you had a commodity without interest, then it's purely a price. You would owe the money for the commodity without interest, and it'd be a transaction.
No, not with the profit, rather than interest.
Well, if the price of the commodity would include profit.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Хорошо, давайте один последний.
Okay, one last bonus question for who comes first. You, please.
Ассаламу алейкум ва
Alaikum assalam.
Добро пожаловать.
Welcome to Russia. I'm Daoud, and I've been working for many years in banking world. So recently I changed the job, and I would like to ask you, how what would be your attitude if a Muslim person would work for commercial banks or for public banks? And also, I helped some Muslim people to find a job. So, is I responsible for them?
In fact, today it is very difficult for a person who wants to live in this world that he lives without a bank. So, I do not say that all relationships with bank are prohibited. No. You can deposit your money in current account. You can deposit in a saving account, and in that case, as a Muslim, you have to give the interest for charity, not to form part of your income. But so far as the job in a bank, if you are not directly involved in charging interest, okay, then you can have a job, a kind of, as a Muslim, you can have a job in a bank which is not directly involved in charging interest.
Шейх, спасибо. Да, я предоставляю вам слово.
Many thanks, dear Sheikh. I would like to give you the floor for some conclusions if you want to say something as a farewell, as a goodbye to our audience.
Something to say, and that is out of the subject, which that I am very thankful for this invitation, and I very much enjoying your beautiful country, and I have been here once before also, but alhamdulillah, this time I enjoyed it a lot, and I have seen the Russia developing, alhamdulillah, and we hope that it will be developed and will make a history, inshallah. So I am thankful for seeing your beautiful country and enjoying this beautiful atmosphere here. And I also enjoyed your free discussion, and open discussion, which is the basic thing through which we come closer to each other. And I hope that this kind of discussion will continue, and inshallah we will be at your service for that purpose. Thank you very much.